Welcome. My name is Grandma Storm. I write stories for young adults. Today I am reading chapters 21 through 25 in my book, The Book of Faith. "21. Faith, wake up. Pa? What do you hear? Is that thunder? The giants are singing. What? Pa signed, come. Guided by a candle, Pa led Faith through the great hall and down a staircase. All the while the booming and the thundering grew louder. I thought the giants didn't talk. That is correct, whispered Pa in between the booms and the thunders. But from time to time, when they want to remember, they sing. What are they remembering, Pa? Putting a finger to his lips, he led her to a balcony. The impression of thunder became the understandable chant of words. Faith looked through the balustrade into the choir of giants. Instead of their usual robes of gray, they wore hooded gowns of white with snowy scapulars reaching the floor. Behind each giant stood ornate thrones carved of solid rock. Pa pointed up. Faith gasped at the brilliance of stars trapped inside the heart of the mountain. On the vaulted ceiling, the flashing of white diamonds, the green glow of emeralds, and the beating pulse of blood-red rubies were answered by the imprisoned glory of amethysts, sapphires, and opals. The gems formed a mosaic of oceans, mountains, suns, and stars. The chanting quickened, light shifted, jeweled trees, crystal castles, and gemstone armies assembled overhead. A new song began. Faith heard the tramping of hobnailed boots in the cadence of the song. She saw horses struggle to pull chariots of war. A terrible host assembled on a wide field. She saw defenders frightened and few. She heard the roar of challenge fill the chamber. Thunder paled to a breath. The skitter of secrets sifted the air. Fear gathered. It floated into the song and into the sketches of men's faces on the vault. A dirge of defeat was set to a wail. Alas, alas, what shall we do? What shall we do? Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. For they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Open your eyes and see. Behold, the mountains are filled with horses and chariots of fire, chariots of fire, chariots of fire. Behold, the mountains are filled with horses and chariots of fire. The bejeweled ceiling blazed as the sun. A wind stirred. The dirge faded. A new song began. It was gentle and sweet, the freshness of a spring meadow, with the glory of a million wildflowers glittered above. Through the blossoming plain walked a white lamb, lit by the splendor of diamonds. Pa motioned for her to stand. They retraced their steps back to their beds. As they passed a window, they saw a night as thick as a blanket still lay upon the mountain. 22. Faith stood on a stool in the kitchen, watching Nicanor make her breakfast. Was his the voice that thundered and boomed? Should she ask him? How would she sign that? It was too hard. She did not know enough signs. The impression that it was all a dream was rather strong anyway. This was her last day to live among giants. She loved them all. Had not Parmenas given her new things to wear, and Nicanor filled her with good things to eat? Had not Stephen shared with her secrets of the fortress? Had not Timon been her first giant friend? Had not Philip been kind to Sonia? Had not Prochorus' drawings entranced her? Even the towering Nicholas played hide and seek with her. She always won. He was too big to hide. She was happy with Pa and their home by the river, but now she had lived with giants. Tears filled her eyes. Her hand went limp. She dropped her spoon, and it clattered to the floor. Nicanor turned to see tears rolling down her cheeks. The giant frowned. Then he thought of the wisp of a girl leaving tomorrow. She had brought much joy. He might never see her again. His great heart broke. The bear of a giant plopped down on a stool beside the little girl. Soon giant tears were dropping from giant eyes and splashing on the table. Crying freely, the pair wallowed in shared sorrow. Climbing down and running for a towel, Faith clambered back, soaking up the flood on Nicanor's big brown cheeks. Awkwardly, Nicanor dried Faith's tears with the corner of his apron. For some reason, as they daubed at one another, it struck them both as funny. Weeping sputtered into hiccups. Hiccups erupted into giggling. Giggling burst into laughter. Laughter led to dancing around the kitchen until they were both breathless. An hour later, when Pa stopped by, he found Faith busily working beside Nicanor. She and Anna were covered in flour. Pa signed to the giant, asking if Faith was in the way. He was surprised by the vehemence of Nicanor's denial, but the brusque reply was instantly softened by the sunshine of a giant smile. Faith looked up from her mixing. "I am having fun," she whispered. "We are making all sorts of wonderful things for tonight." That evening, torchlight played with shadows of reliefs cut deep into the frieze ringing the great hall. The carvings told of battles, prisoners, and victories, all but forgotten. Faded banners and tattered guidons from armies long in their graves were draped between the torches. Hanging from tall spears were campaign streamers of many colors won by the king and his legions. Faith didn't understand what the banners, ribbons, and carvings were all about, but Theophilus knew. The long table, covered in white linen, was set with thick trenchers. Goblets of cast silver were ready for the giants and the man. Faith's place was set with a china cup and plate, fit for a lady. Heavy stone bowls at each place were filled to the brim with clear oil that fed a flame, filling the air with the fragrance of apple blossoms. 7 giants filed in. Pa followed with Faith. At a signal by Stephen, all sat to eat in silence, as was their custom. The other giants were astonished by the abundance of Nicanor's dishes that night. Faith peeked at him, but he kept his eyes to his plate. When all was cleared away, Stephen walked to the far end of the hall. 6 giants followed their prior. At Stephen's invitation, Pa and Faith joined them. Timon came forward. On bended knee, he presented to Faith a tiny packet of silk. The silk was the color of the first leaf of the first flower of spring, secured with a cord of pale pink. Peeking in, she saw seeds as small as grains of sand. By his sign language, interpreted by Pa, she understood she was to plant these seeds when she was in a place without hope. Faith thought that curious, but she politely signed thank you. Parmenas came forward. He presented to Faith a gray cloak of felted wool. He showed her clever pouches and secret pockets. The giant gently draped it on her shoulders. With a grateful smile, she thanked him. Faith tucked Timon's bags of seeds into a secret pocket. Nicholas offered a gift too, a silver key on a delicate chain. Pa helped her understand that the key could open many locks. It was a master key. Faith fingered the silver necklace and admired the shiny king. Thank you, sighed Faith as she slipped the chain over her head. Nicanor knelt before Faith and handed her a flat stone. Her blue eyes met his bare brown eyes with a puzzled expression. Smiling, he took the stone and pushed on the top. It sprang open, revealing a flat cake wrapped in paper. Nicanor signed if ever she had nothing to eat, she was to eat the cake. Faith nodded, signed thank you, clipped it shut, and slipped the stone into a pocket. Prochorus knelt before the child and presented a small book clasped with a silver buckle. Opening it, Faith recognized the vibrant art and calligraphy. Faith hugged the book. Then she hugged him. The gesture shocked old Prochorus, but in the times that followed, he treasured the memory of that innocent moment. Next, Stephen knelt before Faith. He placed in her hand a large acorn. He showed her, with a gentle twist, how the cap came off. Inside was a lustrous pearl. A white ball, thought Faith. Oh, or maybe it is a sweet. Pa was amazed at all the gifts, but this one took his breath away. He recognized a pearl of great price. Indeed, it was a portable fortune. Stephen replaced the pearl and twisted the cap, handing it to the child. Faith dropped the priceless pearl into a pocket. Thank you for the ball, signed Faith. She was quite pleased she could sign an entire sentence. She was more pleased with that than the precious bauble. Lastly, Philip came forward. The shepherd dropped to his knees, covered Faith's head with his huge hand, and sang. The song was not only heard with ears, but felt in the body. There was no need to tuck this gift in a pocket. He chanted it into her heart. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge, gifts of healing and miracles. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge, discernment and prophecy. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge. These are gifts no man may steal. These gifts the Spirit will conceal. An hour before dawn, Faith stood in the courtyard of the fortress. Her new cloak was fastened against the cold. Pa, with his pack, knife, and staff, was by her side. Sonia was saddled with bundles. Anna crowned Faith's brown mop. 7 hooded giants watched as the small party passed into the outside world. Silently the door shut. Silently the shielded iron gate closed. Silently the great outer gate to the fortress was secured, and the bolts slid into their locks. 23. By the glimmer of fading stars, Pa and Faith traversed the broad back of the pass in silence. Philip's song filled her, crowding her heart. The song was so alive within her that it hurt. Walking under the open sky was a comfort. As dawn broke, Faith saw foothills below dissolve into a vast rolling plain that faded into mist. The rocky trail descended by low, long switchbacks ending in a thin line of trees. Through those trees and across that plain was their path to the sea, a ship and a new home. Pa tugged on Sonia's lead, and they began the descent. When they stopped to eat, Faith pulled apart a hunk of bread. The yeasty aroma of Nicanor's baking lingered in the air. Was it only yesterday she danced with the bear of a giant in the kitchen of the mountain fortress? The day was spent when they finally arrived among the spindly trees. Scrubby bushes and tangled undergrowth filled the voids. Pa pulled the bundles from Sonia's back and gave her a good rub down. They would camp here for the night. Sonia snuffed the air. Water. She ambled off in the direction her nose told her to go. Faith, please fetch wood for a fire. Yes, Pa. Sonia closed her eyes and drank. The water was clear and cold. She shook her head, blew her nose, and drank again. She enjoyed the reward of a long drink after a weary day. Suddenly, her head shot up, water dripping from her big donkey lips. Her long ears swiveled, and she spun around. What was that? Now her nostrils spread wide as she detected a strange scent. She found her donkey voice and brayed in alarm. Hee-haw! Hee-haw! Stooped as he unpacked, Theophilus was caught unaware by the dog. A fury of teeth and claws attacked. He grabbed for his knife and managed to stab. The gray hound yelped and jumped away. Sonia came running only to have the beast turn on her, ripping into her hide. The hound swung back to the man, savaging him. Skiva skulked behind a bush, enjoying the spectacle of a dog-biting man. This was a better show than fights at the arena. If the dog kept his teeth, he would be worth a lot of money. Picking up a rock, Skiva hefted it with both hands, gauging the weight, while Kerr bit and clawed and raged. Skiva darted up behind the old man, lifted the rock, and struck. Pa crumpled into a bloody heap. Kerr, back! Down, you monster! Snarled Skiva. You're cut. Get back. Startled by the din, Faith hurried, still carrying a bundle of sticks. Dropping the wood, she screamed and ran to Pa. Skiva grabbed her hair, yanking her away from the body. He stuffed a dirty rag in her mouth, bound another about her head, then tied her hands and feet. Get over here, old Scratch, hissed Skiva. Carry this thing. With trembling hands, old Scratch picked up the struggling child and flung her over his shoulder like a sack of grain bound for the mill. Misery, misery. Skiva yanked a gold ribbon from his pocket and knotted it in her hair. With cold malice, he whispered in Faith's ear, You have a new mistress now. Skiva's black eyes swept past the still form of the old man. The donkey staggered away. Seeing water skins, he picked those up and grabbed a bundle dropped by Theophilus. Back in the cave, growled Skiva. No, Skiva, no, whimpered old Scratch. Ain't there some other way? Anything would be better than that old black hole. I can't go back in there again. We just got out of there barely with our lives before. Couldn't we try the mountain pass? Ha! And face the giants? Idiot, you have no idea what the wrath of that fortress holds for the likes of us. Now get back into that stink hole. Skiva, the hound, and old Scratch, with Faith slung over his back, dove behind a thick bush and dropped into darkness. Perched in a tree sat a turtle dove. Anna flitted down to the man. She bowed and cooed and fussed about. Why didn't the man get up? Where was her girl? Calling in her soft dove voice, she set out a wandering call. The man's fingers contracted in the dust. It was a cold night. The sun dutifully rose and patiently walked across the sky. About midday, the old man opened his eyes. Blinding pain seared his brain. It was cold and stiff. How had he come to lie out here under the open sky? Where was the battle? Where was his unit? He pulled himself to a sitting position. His eyes struggled to focus. Water. He wanted water. He saw a trail of blood. Crawling, he followed the red stain. He found a donkey. Poor thing. She was injured too. Maybe she was part of a caravan taking supplies to the front? At any rate, she had found water. He drank from the stream. Curiously, a turtle dove landed by him. Maybe he could catch it and eat it. Later he found the bundle Skiva had not stolen. He took stock of his resources, a flint, an iron pot, bread, various rations, a knife, a staff, his book. For some reason, there were garments for a small girl. 24. Faith struggled to scream, but the rag choked her. Kicking only made the cords bind her legs tighter. Then all went black. A flame sputtered. All she could see was the back of a man's coat. The place stank, convulsing her stomach and filling her nose with vomit. Fighting for air, Faith twisted her body, trying to throw herself off the man. Skiva, why I haven't carried this girl. She's wiggling and jumping round so much, moaned old Scratch. She's got 2 legs. She can walk. Come on, Skiva, I almost dropped her twice in this here muck. Oh, all right, you carry this stuff, she can walk. Faith was dumped to the ground. Torchlight revealed the desperate eyes of the girl. Skiva reluctantly cut the gag. Faith rolled to her side, retching and gasping for air. For some time, that was all she could do. The gasping was replaced with moaning, then crying. "Pa," whimpered Faith. Skiva slashed her cords and yanked her to her feet. Putting the torch in front of his face, Skiva flashed his big white teeth. Speaking in sing-song, he whined, "No need to worry about your pa. You are with us now. We are going to take you someplace real special. Please let me go. Please, please, please let me go back to Pa." "Shut up!" Eva's smile disappeared. Only his black eyes flashed now. Fighting out the words, he said, "You will be silent. You will walk. You will do exactly as I tell you. If you do not, then either I will sick cur on you, or I will tie you up and leave you in this black abyss all alone forever." With that, he gave her a push, and she fell to her knees. A sweep of Skiva's torch revealed beetles and centipedes scurrying from the flame. Another flash revealed millions of beady eyes staring down at her. Bats! On the edge of hysterics, Philip's song swelled in Faith's heart. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge, gifts of healing and miracles. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge, discernment and prophecy. Words of wisdom, words of knowledge. These are gifts no man may steal. These gifts the Spirit will conceal. Tears flowing down her face, Faith stood and followed the man. Her pretty shoes sank in the foul waste of the bats. Centipedes climbed her legs. She took a step and brushed them off. Skiva carried the torch. Faith followed Skiva. Old Scratch carried the packs. Cur led them all. The bats on the ceiling thinned. The ground became firm. With all her heart, Faith clung to the song. The stench of bats faded. Torchlight flashed, revealing immense columns of rock, pools of black water, and pillars of glimmering crystals. These wonders were lost on the little girl. She was a creature of the spring air and the wood. This was a place of darkness. If they stopped, it was for a sip of water and a bite to eat. Skiva always ate first and took the most. Faith slowly chewed any food she was given. "Misery, misery," groaned Old Scratch. "Ain't you got another crust for me? I still hungry." "You imbecilic idiot," growled Skiva. "Shut up, or I'll serve your next request with my fist." Once, Cur stopped at a black pool, stuck his muzzle in the water, and brought it out snapping. Faith saw a flash of something white and wiggling. Then it was gone. Some cave creature landed in his belly. Time meant nothing. Darkness meant everything. Darkness was a presence. Darkness ruled the caves. Faith remembered a story from the book that told about a darkness that could be felt. It did not make sense then. Now she lived it. As she walked, she pushed darkness with her hands. She breathed it into her lungs. It got into her eyes. It was thick and evil. Walking got harder. Weary beyond words, Faith collapsed in a dead sleep. "We'll stop here," muttered Skiva to Old Scratch, as he poked the girl with the toe of his boot to check if she was still alive. "Find something for me to eat before I snuff the torch." "Oh, Skiva, don't put out the light. What if you can't slide it again? Oh, I hate this blackness worse and worse. Skiva, it be nothing but misery." "Shut up, you fool. I have to save the torches. When we are through this, you'll be paid. Think on that. Now get me something to eat," barked Skiva. "Cur, lay down." Cur snapped his teeth at Skiva, but obeyed. The hound turned round and round like any dog, making his bed on the floor of the cave. He lay next to the girl and was soon asleep with his eyes closed but his ears open. Skiva took a blanket from the pack and put out the torch. "Skiva, the souls might gets me. I heard 'em when we went through 'fore." "Shut up, or I'll leave you here to join them." "Misery, misery," quietly sobbed Old Scratch. "Skiva, yous be so mean to your Old Scratch. I's just trying to do what you says." "Misery, misery. I's so cold. Can't you give me a blanket?" Skiva threw a blanket. It hit the man in the face. Curling up, Old Scratch sank into uneasy dreams about dark bottles, his stinky pipe, and his pigs back home. When Faith awoke, the terror of blindness gripped her. Then she remembered where she was. She shut her eyes and willed Philip's song into her heart. Darkness was then easier to bear. She heard the men snoring. She heard the great dog groan. She was cold. She pulled her legs to her chest, covering them with her cloak. The hound shifted and got up. She could hear him sniffling and tried to make herself smaller. He snuffled around her head, in her ears, and down her back. He had smelled this smell before. Soft quilts came to his mind. Grunting, he lay down, wrapping himself around the girl. Animal warmth enfolded Faith. She went back to sleep, wrapped in the embrace of the terrible beast. Hours later, Skiva struck the flint. The torch sputtered, spat, and flamed to life. He got up, went to the bundles, found the water skins, and helped himself to a long drink. As he rustled through the packs looking for food, he heard a low growl. He turned to see the hound wrapped around the little girl. One malevolent eye stared at him. Skiva thought it better to wake the others and give them all something to eat. Much later, if you asked Old Scratch about their journey through the mountain, he related one terror after another. There was the narrow squeeze called the wormhole, slimed with cold mud. The men had to wiggle through on their bellies. There was the cliff that fell away into an abyss. Torchlight revealed glimmering crystal walls. No bottom. There was the swift, bone-chilling underground river. Skiva made Old Scratch carry Faith across. There were dripping stalactites that kept knocking his poor old head. There was a constant fear of getting lost. Skiva marked their path on the first trip, but he was often confused. Only Cur knew where to go. The worst was the darkness. When they halted to sleep, Old Scratch always hated it when Skiva smothered the torch. Misery, misery. Much later, if you asked Faith about their journey through the mountain, she would say she wanted Pa. She cried, but she cried quietly. If she made any noise, Skiva was angry. She would say she was cold and hungry. Faith would reflect that, as hungry as she was for food to eat and water to drink, she hungered just as much for the warmth of the sun and thirsted for fresh air. Skiva called another halt. Soon he was snoring. Old Scratch was mumbling. Faith and Kerr were wrapped up together. She was drifting off to sleep when she heard what sounded like the rumbling of thunder. Old Scratch jumped to his feet. Skiva, wake up! It's them souls. Do you hear them? Oh, Skiva, them coming to get us. Please light the torch, Skiva. What? And show them the way? Be quiet, you sniveling, whimpering, perfectly disgusting idiot. Skiva whacked Old Scratch with his bony fist. Oh! Shut up, you miserable excuse for human flesh, growled Skiva. Misery, misery. Mumbling, blubbering, whimpering, Old Scratch trembled with his blanket pulled over his head. Kerr pricked his ears and tilted his head to better capture the sound. Faith wondered, could it be the giants singing? Maybe there was a way into the fortress from this cave. If she could get away from these men, maybe she could find her friends. But Skiva kept the torches and tied her hand and foot while he slept. Now Faith, rumble, rumble. Now Faith is the substance, bang, crash, hoped for, crash, boom, rumble. The evidence, rumble, crash. Not seen, rumble, rumble, crash, boom. Faith. Chapter 25. How much longer, Skiva? Moaned Old Scratch. Fortunate for us all, we are close to the end. Your favorite part is coming. Remember? Sneered Skiva. Misery, misery, the tombs. Oh, Skiva, I hates that part most as much as the souls trying to get me. Faith wondered what could be worse than the cave. Nonetheless, she worried what new terror lay ahead. Scrambling up piles of broken rock, they entered a large chamber. Torchlight revealed carvings of armies and kings, chariots and horses. Some of the carvings looked like her giants. But the eyes! As Skiva moved the torch, jewels set in the eyes caught the light and glowed. Skiva, they be looking at me, moaned Old Scratch. What do you think they see? What do you think they want? Maybe they want you. They want you to join them, to stay in the mountain forever. I don't know, Skiva. Come on, Skiva. Let's get out of here. Watch the eyes, Old Scratch. Look at their big, big eyes. They are looking at you, you miserable excuse for sentient flesh. They want to catch you and eat you. Ha! They want to drag you back into the wormhole and leave you there to plug the squeeze with your rotting hide. Ha! They want to twist wire around your scrawny neck and dangle you over the cliff. Remember the cliff, Old Scratch? Or maybe it's the bats. They want to stuff you full of guano and roast you on a spit for afternoon tea. Ha! Oh, misery, misery. Skiva, don't be so mean to your Old Scratch. Ow! Gem eyes flashed and pronounced judgment on Old Scratch's miserable soul. Sculpted hooves pranced in the flame, ready to strike with flinty hooves on his poor old head. Old Scratch dropped to the floor and howled. In the flashing torchlight, granite armies swayed to the cadence of a crazy march. Their hobnailed boots sought to trample them into the dust. Skiva cackled like a fiend. Old Scratch howled like the condemned. Kerr walked away. Faith followed. A new cavern loomed large. The light from Skiva's torch filtered into the space. The carvings on the walls changed and became orderly bays nestled into the cave walls rising to the ceiling. Faith saw words. She paused, and Kerr sat down. Reaching out her hand, she traced the letters, silently spelling SOLDIEROFTHEking. SOLDIER. Soldier of the King. She turned around. There were so many of these words. A vision of a lonely grave on a grassy hill flashed into her mind. As she thought about that quiet resting place, she realized she was now standing in a vast tomb. Kerr stood and sniffed in the girl's air and the girl's ear. Touching his side, they walked away together. Torchlight and shouting faded. Faith gathered a tuft of dog hair and clutched it. The stale air of the cave was freshened by a whiff of something new. As they turned a corner, light filtered into the darkness. More carvings of kings and giants adorned the walls, but Faith no longer saw them. She caught a glimpse of the blazing light of a star. That star was all she wanted to see. Her shoes crunched on something, but she paid little attention to it. She only looked at the star. Faith let go of Kerr, and he bounded for the stairs. Behind her, she heard a shout. Faith saw Kerr silhouetted against starlight. She clambered upward, her eyes dazzled. Her heart was pounding and her legs were shaking, but she was out of the terrible caves. Nothing in her life was so wonderful as the sweet air of that open sky. Kerr was by her side in a moment. He nipped her cloak and pulled. Yielding, Faith followed. He climbed the rocks to the left of the cave entrance, leaning her behind a boulder. As Faith crouched down, Skiva came rushing out of the cave, screaming with rage. "Arg! Where are you? Come here! I command you to come here! Arg!" screamed Skiva. Yowling and whimpering, Old Scratch was close behind. "Skiva, you done left me in that black hole. Oh, Skiva, you be so mean to poor old me. You be the meanest man there be," moaned Old Scratch. "You have seen nothing yet, you nauseating fool," screamed Skiva. "Now you lost that girl." "Oh, Skiva, I didn't mean to," wailed the desolate man. "She's got to be here. Misery, misery." "The dog is gone as well. When I find that hellhound, I am going to beat it senseless," vowed Skiva. "Kerr, get over here. Kerr, come." Screaming and cursing, Skiva worked his way from the cave entrance. Old Scratch followed, wailing as he went. Their voices faded. Faith curled up next to Kerr and fell into an exhausted sleep. When Faith awoke, Kerr was gone. She was cold, hungry, and thirsty. She was brave through the caves. She was brave in the face of hunger. She was brave in the captivity of the evil Skiva and the foolish old Scratch. Now she was all alone. All the bravery left too. She wanted to have someone warm and loving pick her up and carry her home. The strength of Philip's song was undiminished, but she pushed it away. "Oh, Pa," sobbed Faith, "what am I to do?" The wind freshened and it started to rain. Although the boulder had shielded her from the eyes of Skiva, it did not shield her from the rain. She made her way back to the cave. Remembering the joy she felt climbing out, Faith could not believe she was descending into that black hole again. She wanted to drink the rain. She tried. Sticking her head out to catch raindrops in her mouth was not satisfying her terrible thirst. It only made her wet and cold. Retreating into the cave, her shoes crunched on something. She recalled that sound from the night before. Now she saw shards of broken pottery all over the floor. Further back, she saw urns, jars, and pots. Faith dumped the contents of a small jar. Odd bits, dust, and papers skittered away in the wind rushing in from the storm. Faith carried the jar up the steps and put it under the open sky. A mouthful of dusty water gathered in the jar. Faith drank it. Maybe another jar held something to eat, thought the girl. Wax sealed the lids, but it was dry and cracked. Faith broke off bits and tried chewing it. There was the barest hint of sweet beeswax, but the pain in her stomach was not going away with such meager fare. The other jars and pots she opened held nothing but dust. Blankly, she stared at a rock and wished she could eat it. In Pa's book, there was a story about rocks that turned to bread. How she wished that could happen now. Then she remembered. Nicor signed if ever she had nothing else to eat, she was to eat the cake. With trembling hands she searched her pockets. Her fingers discovered the stone and closed around it. Faith sank to her knees. She tried to remember how Nicanor opened it. With pressure on top, the box sprang open. Inside was the little cake. I must not eat it all at once. I should just bite a corner, Faith advised herself. She tried to obey that prudent thought, but it was impossible. She popped the whole cake in her mouth. It tasted like... She could not describe it. It was simply the best thing she had ever eaten. With a sigh, Faith snapped the stone shut, slipped it into her pocket, and retreated further into the cave. As she descended, she noticed a trail of gear old Scratch left behind. There was a blanket, a water skin, and a small bundle. She thought about searching for something more to eat, but realized she was not hungry. Instead, she yawned and hiccuped. As rain poured outside the cave, Faith rolled up in the blanket, tucked herself among the urns, and fell asleep. Thank you for listening. To hear more of the story, please come back soon, or you may purchase your own copy on Amazon. Just follow the link below. Until next time.